Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Cassie. Today we're going to be making a Slimline thank you card. We're going to be using some Trinity stamps stuff. This is the awesome human stamp and I just love it. It goes along with some of the others that I've made, so it's really not that different, but I think that these are fantastic for whipping out some easy thank you cards. Because it's Slimline, we're going to be using the Slimline stitched die that you see here. Love this die. And then we're also going to be using some 5mm gold stars by Pretty Pink Posh. I don't know if those are still available, but I'll link them if they are. And then this specialty paper by Tonic. It's called Red Berries, and it's different than the cardstock. It is paper, and it is, it's divine. And then, of course, we're going to be using the Slimline envelope die. All right, so let's go ahead and get started making our card. I'm going to trim down some cardstock. This is going to be 7.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And that leaves us with this little extra piece that is perfect for one of those stitched, Slimline stitched dies. But before we go ahead and do that, I'm going to go ahead and score this at 3 3/4. So this will be a side folding Slimline card. And then here is this leftover piece. I'm just going to tack that down just using a little bit of purple tape, and then I'll run that through my Gemini die cutting machine. If you don't have a Gemini, or you don't have a big die cutting machine, or if you don't have long plates, you can still make Slimline cards with the dies. You're just going to need to pull them out and then shift what you're cutting down so that you can run it through your machine. But just practice and play. So I ran that through my die cutting machine, and I used the one that has the 3 little squares in the center, and you can save those little squares and you can use them for something else, which is what I plan to do. But here I'm just pulling off those dies, and then you're left with this beautifully stitched Slimline border. This is some acetate. Now this is the Apollo transparency sheets. I have so many of these. So I'm going to trim this down so that it'll go over the center there. Because this is going to be a shaker. And I'm just going to use some 1/8 inch score tape to tack down my transparency sheets. And then once I've gotten the release paper all pulled off, I'll just take that transparency sheet and stick that right down over the top. Works perfectly. And then we'll get ready to actually do our shaker element. So I'm going to use some Scotch foam tape, but I'm not doubling it up this time. Because those stars are fairly flat stars, I didn't need this to be real thick, so it's just one layer of Scotch foam tape, and then I'll peel off all of the release paper, and I'm only going to put some of the stars in the top and the bottom because my sentiment's going to go over the center, and there is Max. So curious. I'm so afraid he's going to run off with this. He's definitely a paper cat. He likes to take the paper and run. We've developed that. Unless he's sitting on my lap, of course. I'm gonna use my Tonic spoon, and I'll just put a couple little sets of the stars, or spoonfuls of the stars, right into those squares. And then we're gonna remove Miles from the table, and then we're going to stick down our other piece of transparency paper right over the back. I just found that this is the easiest way. And because that transparency paper is so inexpensive, I don't mind using a couple sheets with each one of those shaker cards that I make. I've put my stamp into my MISTI, and I'm going to ink that up with Raven Detail ink, which is good for Copic coloring. And I'm stamping that down onto some Express It cardstock. And I'm just going to stamp that a couple times to make sure I have a good, crisp, clean image. And then I will remove that, and I have a scrap of some, it's like a red cardstock, but it's a little bit deeper. And all I want to do is stamp that center that says awesome. So I've stamped that out. And then now I'm going to take a white gel pen, and I am going to color in the word awesome. So it'll still have that nice black outline. And this is a number 8 Sakura Jelly Roll pen. My gel pens, the Signo gel pens that I have, are fine. They still work fine. But I have this, and it just does such a good job, and it's a little bit thicker than my gel pens, and so my Signo gel pen. So I'm just going to use this, and it ends up working out really nicely. I will grab a couple of Copics. I'm going to grab the E07, and that'll be my darker one. And I do grab the E08, but it ends up almost looking just about as dark as the E07, simply because I'm probably doing it on this kind of cardstock, which is not necessarily a Copic friendly cardstock. You can definitely color on colored cardstock. It's just not going to give you the same effect as coloring on a alcohol marker friendly cardstock that would be white, or even craft for that matter. So now we're going to move on to coloring our stars. We're going to use Y28, and we're also going to color in the words R, and just trying to be really careful because these are fairly thin lines and fairly thin stars. So I'm mostly just using the tip of my Copic to color in those stars. For a darker shade, we are going to bring in a brown. We're going to use an E84, and yeah, now the star is starting to look a little bit brown, but I will bring in that Y28 one more time and just soften that brown some more. And then I feel like it starts to look a little bit more gold, especially once I put it on the card, because then it really brings out the stars that are in the shaker. So we'll just blend that out just a little bit. And then we're going to color the U and human, but we're going to do it in more subdued colors. Just bringing in my colorless blender to kind of erase some mistakes. I don't end up bringing or using the W1. I decided to go a little darker, so I'm going to put the W1 away, and I'll grab my it was the W3, so I'm going to grab my W5. And I know when you're looking at this, it doesn't look real exciting to use like grays. I kind of wanted it to be black, but I ended up not going that dark. And so here we have just using some grays, and I'm just going to color in both of those words as carefully as possible. Right now I'm just trying to replenish my thank yous. My daughter's best friend, real sweetheart. She's graduating this year. You know, it's obviously looking a little different than anyone had anticipated, but she's still obviously super special, and she deserves a special day. Anyway, she hit me up for thank yous, and so I sent her all the thank yous that I had left. So I'm going to try and restock here a little bit, and this is just one way that I'm doing that. All right, so my next shade would be W7, and it's interesting to me as I'm coloring this, I'm kind of struggling with where to put my shadowing and shading. I don't know why, I just am. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. You know, you just do what you think looks good, which is basically, and I find that I end up doing a better job when I do let go and just kind of go with it. Most of the time, you know, when you're handing off a card to a recipient, chances are they're just grateful that somebody remembered them or thought of them. So they're not looking that closely at like, her shading is really off. So here I'm bringing in the W9, and I'm just adding some darkness where I think it might look good. And then I'll blend that out again with my W7. And I don't think the word human looks fantastic. It probably would look better if I just added more color. But I wanted a little bit more subdued since the awesome banner in the middle is going to be red. I'm going to show you something here. I didn't have the right size, so I'm going to take that Slimline die, one of them, that fit over that perfectly, and I'm going to make my own size. So I'm lining that up, making sure that the stitching even lines up, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine one more time, and then I'll have this perfectly cut border around my You Are an Awesome Human. And now I'm going to fussy cut the awesome banner, and I'm going right on the line. Typically I don't do that, you know, when I fussy cut I usually like to leave a little bit of a border, but in this case it just wouldn't look right, so I'm cutting right on the line, and Miles is inspecting. And then I'm going to bring in my Memento marker just on the edge, and I am going to rub that marker all along the edge of my piece so that, you know, it covers up any mistakes that you might have made in your cutting, and it also gives it a nice black border, which is nice. Okay, now we're going to adhere our shaker element, and so there is still some foam tape showing, but in the areas where it got covered by the acetate, I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue. Then I'll take my card base, and I'll just adhere that down to the front of the card base. I didn't write anything or stamp anything on the inside this time. I just didn't. I figured that way it'd give me a lot more room to write. I did use some foam tape on the back of the word awesome, that banner. And now I'm going to show you how to adhere the envelope. I know that if you've watched me at all, you've seen this 100 times. But my camera battery died, which is why you didn't get to see me actually finish the card. However, this paper is fantastic. And I don't know how it would go through the mail. I assume it would go through just fine as long as you use a good quality, like strong adhesive, and that's why I'm using this liquid glue. I don't think it would have any problem, mostly because the card that you're going to put in it is going to fill that envelope, and so it's going to be sturdy. But it's just so beautiful, isn't it? I think this is so cool. Obviously, you could just hand this off to a recipient if you wanted to as well. You wouldn't have to put it through the mail. But if you did decide to put it through the mail, you're not going to be able to write on that envelope as easily. So I would highly suggest like using some like address labels, and then even using glue to get those adhered down as well, because sometimes with paper like this it can be a little bit finicky trying to get a sticker to stick to it. So just a thought, just make sure that you use strong adhesives if you do decide to make something like this using the specialty paper and trying to send that through the mail. Alright, so there it is, all put together so easy. I love that I can make my own custom envelopes, and here is our card. Love how it turned out. Cute little shaker, and the subdued colors are kind of fun, and this is how it'll fit into that envelope, no problem, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And there you have it. Alright, so if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye everybody.